everybody. We're back in the shop tonight. It's a balmy 80-some degree summer night here in Ohio, but we've been busy riding and camping and 4th of July in it, but I'm getting back on some projects, which, you know, we've seen that we got new side-by-side, well, new to us, side-by-side. And of course the projects have already started because, you know, I had to throw the whip lights on for my daughter. She wanted some lights on it, so I had to throw those on before we left. But came back and promptly threw a new set of Cobra axles in the back because of all the things I'd heard about the stock axles giving up and stuff. So went ahead and threw some upgraded axles in the back. And then, of course, you know, this is my problem with side-by-sides. You buy one and you instantly start upgrading it. And that's why I'm going to build the Jeep, because I can just go ahead and start with all upgraded parts to begin with in my build. So I think it'll be money well spent in the long run, because I think it'll end up being cheaper. Because I didn't know, but apparently the 4-seater Rmaxes especially are bad for the tender springs collapsing down all the way. And then basically they're just a solid steel coil. And so you're riding on your mainsprings the entire time and getting a much stiffer ride. The front springs are not that bad, but I don't know what they compare to as far as the factory goes, because you actually can see through those springs a little bit. And front seems to ride good, but the back bucks a little bit, which, you know, from the things I'd read, I knew to expect that a little bit. I mean, that's what happens when you sit right above the axle. But these back ones are pretty well compressed. That one's, I think, seems to be a little better than that one. That one there seems to be a little more compressed, and it looks like it leans a little bit anyhow when you back and stand. But I've measured it, and, you know, factory ride specs are like 13.6 inches or something like that, and this is only about 12 inches, which I got the tires aired down a little bit. So I'm going to throw some air in the tires and go ahead and get a measurement front and back and see what it sits with a little more air in the tires. I don't have any rocks around here to crawl, so I don't really need them that low. And I'm going to air them up, get some measurements, see what it's sitting at. And then I have a box from Bandit UTV suspension to open up. But first, my boy wants a hitch installed in the back of his truck. So I'm going to get that done here, and then we'll open up this package and see what all's in there. Alright, got that done. Too bad it wasn't that easy to install a fifth wheel hitch or gooseneck in a real truck. Although, I gotta say, he's got good taste in trucks. Alright, I went ahead and aired up the tires. I don't know if there's a factory air pressure or not, but I aired them up to 15 pounds. I had them down to 10 when I was in Tennessee, Tackett Creek and stuff, climbing the rocks and smoothing out the ruts and stuff. 10 worked pretty good. This weekend though, we went camping and did some high-speed rides and some donuts and stuff, and it was a little squirrely at 10 pounds. And around here, I don't really have anything that I need maximum traction for, so I went ahead and aired them up to 15, see how that works, but figured that's got to be fairly close for height measurement. Let's see, the bottom of the hitch, we are about 12 3/4, it looks like. There you go. Yeah, roughly 12 3/4. Because there's a plate there. There we go. 12 3/4. There in the back. And I don't know where they measure from the front. I got that plastic skid plate and stuff up there, so I'm just going to measure here behind the A-arm on the frame. And that looks like that's also about 12 3/4. I don't know if you guys can see any better than I can really, but that's what I'm going with. 12 3/4 front and back. Yeah, like I said, I was going to look up the factories and I forgot. I'll add it in somewhere. Maybe I'll know by the time I get the next, or by the time I get the springs on. And I'll say what the factory ride height is supposed to be. And the tires, they're factory tires, but they are wore down a little bit. So I don't know if that would even be enough to quantify anything or not, but we'll get the springs open, and I think what I'll do is I'll get the springs changed out, get them set, get an initial height measurement, and then I'll go out and rump on it some and cycle the suspension a bunch, get it settled in, and then bring it back in for a final measurement and see if I need to adjust anything. But let's see what we got. I know one thing. I'm hoping that I got a sticker. Because I mean, what's the point in getting something new and fancy if it doesn't come with a sticker? Well, they're iBox springs, so got that. 3-inch diameter, made USA. iBox springs. So there's a main. I don't know if front and back's the same or not. I'll have to see. I don't know anything about this yet. We're learning together. There's a tender. Oh, that's got a... Well, I'll see how much the front one spring, or how much the tenders open up when I get them off. But I'll set the new springs and the old springs beside one another. Oh, that one there right there says Rmax front. I don't see if it says anywhere on that one. Need a table. But you know, the problem with flat spaces are they always get stuff stacked on them and they're no longer free. There's the other front one. So maybe I would assume these are the fronts since they're all packed together, because front, I even marked that one there with an F on the package. These don't say anywhere, but I'm going to assume they're the fronts since they were packed with the front tenders. And the rear. And I'm going to guess these are the rear lowers. Yeah, they're shorter, so them's got to be the rears. So I'm going to leave all of those in there, although it should be pretty easy to figure out since they're shorter. But that's what I got. Oh, I got a decal. Looky there. Get that opened up and see what it says. It'll probably tell me something. I don't know if it'll tell me anything I don't already know, but we'll read her and find out. Came with an Allen wrench. Alright, I'm back. I went ahead and washed it. So that way, hopefully, when I dig in there, I ain't knocking a bunch of dirt down myself. Of course, it's pitch black outside. Lights didn't really shine out there, so I didn't do that good a job. You can tell there's already still mud on the back here. But it's a lot better than it was. So, and I got the underside sprayed out. So, I did look up, and it looks like the 21s were 13.4 inches of ground clearance from what I could find. The newer models with the 21s came with the 9x11 staggered 29s, and the newer models come with this 30 set on a square pattern, 30 by 10, 30 by 10. So they picked up a little bit in the tire there. So the 24s are 13.8 inches. It's supposed to be 13.4. We measured out at 12.75. So we're almost 3/4 of an inch lower than factory, which isn't a lot. It ain't as much as I've heard some people say theirs was squatting, but I'll be curious to see what those springs look like on the ground next to the new springs. But because it's got the preload set in them like it should, so it ain't the preload that's backed off causing it to sit low. Well, that spring there shouldn't be that compressed. That doesn't hardly move at all, probably. I bet once everybody gets in, the kids in the back and me and the wife, that it's probably pretty well completely shut anyhow. So then we're just riding on the main springs the entire time and doubling our spring rater. I don't know what these springs are rated at, but somewhere around twice as stiff as it should be, at least for the first little bit. So that'll be it for tonight. We're gone every weekend this month pretty much, so I only have at night to work on it. So I only get a little bit done at a time. I read through the directions, which nice and clear, good pictures, good explanation of everything. I got to get some thread locker because I don't have any. And their directions are just how to set the preload. And they don't have any directions on changing the springs out, so that shouldn't be too bad. But hopefully, if everything goes good, I can tear into it tomorrow night, and we'll see what we get into then. Until then, we're off until I can get a chance to get back to it. Catch you later. All right, evening everybody. It's time to change these springs on the Rmax. It's I don't even remember when I started this video. I showed you guys the springs and what they were, but I got the Rmax up on the lift, and I already changed the passenger side, front and back, and it's pretty simple. But there's the difference between those are the rears. You can tell that you can see they got less coils. They're little. The bottom spring is much bigger around, and it also looks like maybe the coil itself's a little bit thicker, but got nice machined aluminum lower catch there, and it comes with another spring perch here for your spring divider there. But yep, time to get them on there. It's a pretty simple job. Pull the wheel off. The rear needs to be it's easiest just to pull the shock off on the rear, put springs on. I'd read people talking about needing a spring compressor, but I did not need any kind of spring compressor. It's pretty easy. Didn't need any special tools. In fact, I mean, that's pretty much all the tools I used. A couple sockets, ratchet, couple extensions, hammer and screwdriver, and impact. So get the tire off and get these back ones changed out. Obviously, if you got a lift, it helps, but otherwise you just need to get it up in the air to take the weight off the shock. The shock bolts are a 17 millimeter for the nut and the bolt head, which this is kind of a dumb design. I feel like Yamaha, you could have did better. But believe it or not, I've seen worse. Alright, I got the nut off both the shock bolts, and now tape measure, but I measured the other side. The other side was 1.5 inches between, let's see if you can see it on this side. Was 1.5 inches between the black part of the upper shock here to the top part of this spanner nut, and that's the preload that was set on it, which I'm pretty sure that the other video's been so long I can't remember exactly what I did, but I was pretty sure that I measured the ground clearance, because it was, I want to say it was like 12.25 in the front and 12 in the back, maybe somewhere around there. I don't know. Hopefully I measured it in the other video, but I had measured it and I knew it was somewhere around 12 inches, because it's supposed to be 13.4, and I think it was like 12.75, so it was about 3/4 inch lower than stock, because it was sagging. So, and that's, like I said, that's with 1.5 inches of preload. I'll grab a tape measure so we can double check. Yeah, it's just about 1.5 inches. I know it's dark up in there, but by the time I get a light and put my hands in there, you still can't see nothing, but it's just about pretty much 1.5 inches. And the other side I set at 3/4 with the new springs. The directions from Bandit are pretty clear. Good pictures. Pretty simple. I mean, they don't explain any of the procedure for getting the shocks off or changing anything out. They just tell you, which you got different directions, whether you have a 2-seater or a 4-seater. As for the rear, that's what I'm doing here, is the rear. But I mean, they're pretty simple, good color photo, so pretty good. But their suggestion on the rear is to just screw the nuts down until they're touching the spring, and that's basically 0 preload. And then you adjust them from there on what kind of ride height you want and what kind of suspension tuning you're doing. But so the other side touched a little less than 3/4, but I just went ahead and it was real close, but I just went ahead and cranked them on down to 3/4 just to make it easy starting point. So while you still got the bolts in here to hold your spring, you can use a spanner nut if you got one. Put it in these. You can't see. See, put in those old notches. But all you really need is a screwdriver, or if you're a proper mechanic, you'll use a punch to knock those nuts loose. And all you got to really do is knock the top one loose and spin it up out of the way, and then you can just grab a hold of the spring and just twist it, and most of the times it'll turn that other nut until you get it loose enough you can turn it off by hand too. Oh, and you might as well go ahead and unplug your, if you have the limited that has the adjust on the fly. You just gotta unplug this connector, which you just push in and pull out, which bravo Yamaha for using a simple design like that. So once that's unplugged, you can take your shock off, plus that's out of the way now. So spin those nuts up. There we go. Bottom shock bolt. Top shock bolt. Now the shock's off. There you can get in. There you can see those spanner nuts, the little notches I was talking about. They make wrenches for them, but you can just use a chisel or punch. I mean, I used to use a screwdriver because they ain't that tight. So, alright, now you have to, all you do is pull your shock up. And this is the bottom retainer. And it's just got the bump stop was holding it there, so just pick it up and it just slide right off there. Now you can take your bottom coil, you got to reuse this part, but you put it on upside down from the way the factory has it per Bandit's instructions. So we need that part again. This is your top tender spring. And this will just leave this on where your top coil is going to sit in against the springs, or against the spanner nuts, I mean. But now just installs pretty well simple. It's just the reverse, pulling it apart. Alright. Got the new tender spring. This is your divider here, and like I said, you got to put it on with the tall side up per Bandit's instructions. That sits inside there, and you got your top plate that goes on with the cup down so that that'll go inside your shock. Put your shock on, slide your bump stop up out of your way so you can put the new retainer on, and then it just slides over down in the groove. Seat your spring in there and you're back installed. Put sure everything's seated. Yep, right at 3/4. And like I said, that's 0 preload, but there's enough tension on there that your retainer's not going to come off the bottom. But it's tight enough. And just put her back in there. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, they come with these crossover clamps. And these, the directions tell you where to put these. I think on the rear, they wanted them 2 inches from the top of this cup here. And there's, I don't know if you guys will be able to see or not, but they're a split ring. There's machined dimples in what they consider the top. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah, there it is. But dimples go up, and you measure from the bottom of this to the top, and that's the height that you set according to their directions. Now these things are a clamp, and so when you tighten those bolts, you can't turn them, and they recommend having some purple Loctite on these. You cannot slide these up on there. At least I didn't feel like I could without messing up the threads, because basically these are a clamp, and so they're meant to tighten down, so it has to be a little bit smaller diameter. Even when I loosened up the screws and pulled these way apart, I don't know if you see how I loosened up the screws and pulled those way apart, and they still did not want to go up over the shock body without, I felt like they were going to mess up the threads. So maybe there's a better way, I don't know, but I am going to wait and put these on after I've cycled the suspension and everything, because you can just take them clear apart, stick them right through there, put one side on, put the other side on, put the bolts in, and tighten them up that way. Of course, I say that like it's easy, and I don't know, I haven't done it yet. But I don't even know if I'm going to put them on. These are basically a tuning tool to, it's your crossover nut. So basically when you cross over or switch over from your top spring to your main bottom spring, and so you can use this to tune your suspension, which would be nice with especially on the 4-seater, you got passengers and stuff. If you don't want to crank down a bunch of preload, but you don't want it to bottom out too fast or feel too squishy, you can lower this down, so that way you come off your tender spring earlier and switch over to the heavier mainspring. So I don't know if I'll use these or not. I don't really do high speed trails or anything like that. My kids are still really little, so they're not much weight when they're in the back. So I may put them on if I feel like I need them eventually, but as for now, I'm going to just put it together like this. Get the suspension, get the springs cycled, get them broke in a little bit, let everything settle, and I'll get everything adjusted to the height I want. And then if I feel like I need to put these in, I will. And otherwise I'm just going to run them like this. The factory springs didn't have these. Like I said, these are kind of like a tuning tool. So if you want to switch over to your main spring a little sooner so you have a stiffer suspension without dialing in a whole bunch of preload and jacking up the height and stuff, then you can use these to do that. But I am just going to put her together like this and try everything out. Like I said, I may put those on at a later date. As of right now, I'm just sticking them together. Again, Yamaha, this could have been a much better design. Ouch. Yeah, that hurt. There was a metal burr sticking out of that nut. That hurt. Just about 3 ugga-duggas tight. Check my height. Now I don't have to hold on to the shock. Yep. There it is. Cinch my lock nut, or the lock. The top spanner nut is your lock nut to hold everything where it's supposed to be. Just tighten that back down. Plug your, if you have them, plug your wire back into your shock and call her done. Throw the tire back on, that's the rear. The lug nuts are 3/4 or 19. Either will work, but my 19 just seems to be a little bit too tight or something, but because I'm having a hard time getting the lug nuts out of the socket. So I switched over to 3/4 and it ain't sticking no more. I run those about 4 ugga-duggas on the torque wrench. Alright, there's the back. Let's go to the front.